I'm 32 years old, and by most standards, my life was steady and moving in a direction I had planned. The main person involved in this story, besides me, is my now ex-fiancée, Sarah, who was 30 at the time. We had been together for 4 years and engaged for the last one. We lived in a house I had bought before we got engaged. It was solely in my name, a financial decision based on my savings and family help, well before Sarah became a serious part of my life. Sarah moved in with me, about 2 years into our relationship. Other people involved include Sarah's ex-boyfriend, James, who was her partner before me. Their relationship, as she told me, ended because he was cheating on her. Her parents and her younger sister Clara also became aware of the situation as it developed. Our initial relationship felt strong. We met through a mutual friend, dated, for a year before deciding to live together, and 2 more years passed before I proposed. Our bond seemed built on shared interests and what I believed was mutual respect. Sarah knew about my financial situation. For example, the house was bought by me using a mix of savings and an inheritance from my grandparents. It was a 3-bedroom, suburban home, comfortable, and more than enough for our needs and future plans, which included marriage and possibly starting a family in a few years. Sarah helped with household expenses like utilities and groceries, but did not have any financial stake in the property itself. This was a clear, agreed-upon arrangement. James was a part of Sarah's past, and I was aware of him. She had been open about their 2-year relationship, which ended badly when she found out he was cheating on her repeatedly. She had often talked about the pain and betrayal he caused. I thought that was old history, something she had dealt with and moved past, especially since we were engaged and building a life together. About 6 months before the main event, I started noticing small changes in Sarah's behavior and how she talked. James's name, once rarely mentioned and only related to past hurt, began coming up more often in what seemed like casual conversations. She mentioned seeing a social media post from him or hearing news about him through a distant mutual friend. At first, I didn't think much of it. People from the past sometimes resurface in one's awareness, but these mentions grew more frequent. She would talk about what-ifs concerning her past, sometimes comparing her life choices. There was a growing restlessness in her that I couldn't quite understand. She became more withdrawn, spending more time on her phone and often looking thoughtful or distracted after. When I asked if everything was okay, she usually gave vague reassurances or said she was stressed from work or just tired. Things escalated when, about 3 months before she asked for a break, Sarah told me James had contacted her directly. According to her, he reached out to apologize for his past mistakes, expressing deep regret and saying he had changed a lot. She said she was surprised but also curious, describing it as a need for closure, to hear him out. I remember telling her that closure often comes from within, not from the person who caused the pain, but I didn't forbid her from talking to him. I believe that in a relationship based on trust, it's not my place to control who she can or can't speak with, though I did share my unease because of their history. In the following weeks, it became clear their communication wasn't just a one-time thing. Sarah was texting late at night and sometimes left the room to take calls. When I brought this up, she admitted they had been talking more regularly. She described James as very persuasive, painting a picture of a changed man who deeply regretted his past. She started talking about things they used to share, trips they took, inside jokes. It was like she was re-examining her past relationship with him, not as a source of pain, but through a new, more nostalgic lens. The turning point that showed this was a serious problem came when she began comparing James and me, or more accurately, her relationship with James and her relationship with me. She started expressing that she felt like she missed out on a certain kind of excitement or passion, which she gently linked to her time with James. She would say things like, "Our life was comfortable and stable," yet she still questioned whether comfort and stability were enough for her in the long run. This was alarming, because those were the very qualities we had both believed were important for our future together. I tried to address these worries with her directly, asking what had changed, and what she felt was missing in our relationship. Her answers were often contradictory. She would say she loved me and valued our life together, but then quickly expressed doubts about her own feelings and future happiness, often bringing up James and the what-if scenarios. It became clear she was deeply torn, or maybe being pulled back into an old pattern. The week before she asked for a break, she met James for coffee. She told me about it ahead of time, framing it as an innocent meeting to finally get closure. I didn't argue, but told her I was uncomfortable with it, especially given her recent behavior and doubts. Still, she went. When she came back, she was distant and evasive, sharing few details about their talk, only that it was interesting and that James had indeed changed a lot. The mood in our home turned tense for the next few days. Everything changed one Saturday morning. I had planned for us to spend the day together, maybe go for a hike, hoping to reconnect. But before we could start, in the very room where we had discussed wedding plans and our future, she began by saying how much she appreciated me and the life we'd built. Then she shifted to her inner conflict, admitting she was confused about her feelings. She brought up James again, saying reconnecting with him stirred old emotions and made her question if she'd made a mistake leaving him, or if she should explore whether something was still there now that he claimed he had changed. Then came the request. She asked for a break from our relationship. She was clear. She wanted some time, maybe a few weeks or a month or two, to explore her connection with James. She suggested staying with her sister Clara or finding a temporary place. During that time, she wanted to date James to see if her feelings were real or just nostalgia. She stressed it wasn't that she wanted to end things with me for good, but that she needed space and freedom to figure out her heart before we married. She even said this exploration might make her a better partner for me, or prove that James was truly a mistake, which could strengthen our relationship in the long run. She asked for my understanding and patience. I listened without interrupting. Inside, what I heard was my fiancé asking to pause our engagement and shared life so she could test a relationship with an ex who had cheated on her before. From my point of view, her request was final and immediate. While she framed it as a temporary pause to explore, I saw it as a fundamental betrayal of the commitment our engagement symbolized. When she finished, I didn't argue or plead. I asked a few clarifying questions to be sure I understood that she planned to actively pursue a romantic and likely physical relationship with James during this break. She confirmed this was her intention, saying it was the only way to truly know. My response was calm and direct. I told her that if she felt the need to explore a relationship with another man, then for all practical purposes, our relationship was over. I said I wouldn't be a placeholder, nor would I agree to put our commitment on hold so she could experiment elsewhere. I told her I wouldn't wait for her to decide between me and her cheating ex. I explained that her very request showed a deep lack of respect for me and the vows we were planning to take. I told her I considered our engagement and relationship ended immediately. She looked shocked, maybe expecting me to negotiate or plead emotionally. She tried to argue that I misunderstood, that she was confused, not that she didn't love me. I stood firm. Her desire to explore another relationship was, in itself, the end of ours. Sarah was visibly stunned by my position. She tried to backtrack, suggesting maybe a break wasn't necessary or that we could discuss it more. But the request had been made, and the meaning was clear to me. I told her that the trust and commitment I thought we shared were irreparably broken by her proposal. Since she needed space to explore things with James, I would give her all the space she needed. I told her she had to make arrangements to move her things out of the house. I suggested she should probably start making plans for her next steps. She intended to stay with her sister or find another place, since living with me was no longer an option. That same Saturday afternoon, after she left the house in distress, presumably to process everything or go to her sister's, I began taking action. My decision wasn't made out of anger, but with a cold clarity. The relationship was over. The future we had planned was cancelled. So the logical step was to dismantle the foundation of our shared life. My first move was to call a locksmith. Within a few hours, all the locks on the house were changed. I owned the house. It was my property, She had no legal claim to it. Over the rest of the weekend, I prepared the house for sale. This meant clearing out some of Sarah's personal items that were easily removable and mixed with mine in common areas. Clothes, toiletries, a few decorative pieces. I packed these neatly and stored them in the garage, planning to arrange a time for her to collect them. I also began decluttering and depersonalizing the space to make it more attractive to potential buyers. On Monday morning, I contacted a highly recommended real estate agent. I briefly explained the situation. I was now single and needed to sell quickly because I was pursuing a new job opportunity. This was true in a way, as I had already started activating my professional network for out-of-state roles and wanted a fast, straightforward sale. The agent was efficient and listed the property within days. The market was favorable for sellers. At the same time, I started looking for a new job in another state. I had been considering a career move for months, seeking new challenges, and this situation became the catalyst. I updated my resume, reached out to contacts, and applied for several positions in a city on the opposite coast that offered a strong industry presence and a complete change of environment. Another point of focus was our shared cloud storage for photos, documents, and backups, which held years of our memories together. I downloaded my personal files and photos, anything exclusively mine or that I had rights to, and then systematically removed her access. After that, I deleted the shared folders and content that belonged mostly to both of us. It was a digital severance. I communicated with Sarah minimally. When she demanded to know why the locks were changed, I informed her via text that our relationship was over, the house was being sold, and she needed to arrange a time with my realtor or a trusted friend to collect her boxed belongings. I refused to engage in further discussion or arguments, stating that all future communication would be strictly logistical. As expected, she was furious and distraught. She accused me of being heartless and impulsive, insisting she was only confused, and that I had overreacted. I didn't debate her. My decision was final. Because of the house's location, condition, and an aggressive pricing strategy, it received an offer within 2 weeks. It was a cash offer, slightly below asking price, but without any complications, which I accepted. Closing was scheduled for 30 days later. During this time, Sarah's attempts to contact me increased through calls, texts, and emails. I ignored most of them. When her messages became abusive or overly emotional, I blocked her number and email. I also blocked her on all social media platforms. I instructed my realtor to handle all communication about her belongings, which she eventually collected with her sister Clara present. I wasn't there during the pickup. The house sale closed as planned about 6 weeks after Sarah asked for a break. By then, I had secured a promising job offer in the new state, which included a relocation package that sped up my move. I sold some furniture, put essentials in storage, and packed my car. I moved across the country swiftly. I found a temporary apartment in the new city, started my new job, and began establishing a new life. I focused on work, explored the city, and reconnected with a couple of old university friends who lived nearby. I made a conscious effort not to dwell on the past relationship beyond the lessons learned about clear boundaries and deal breakers. It has now been about 8 months since I moved. I'm settled in my new job, which is challenging and rewarding. I found a more permanent place to live. For all practical purposes, I'm doing okay. I wouldn't say I'm ecstatic or empowered by everything that happened, but I'm functional, stable, and moving forward with my life as planned, though on a revised path. The reason for this post, this venting or rambling maybe, is because of information that has started coming back to me about Sarah's situation. This information primarily came from 2 sources. Clara, Sarah's sister, who contacted me a couple of months ago, and mutual acquaintances from my old city with whom I still maintain loose professional ties. According to Clara, and confirmed by bits of information from others, Sarah's time with James was short-lived and disastrous. True to his past, James was not the changed man he claimed to be. He was reportedly still involved with other women or quickly went back to his old ways once Sarah was available to him. About 2 months after Sarah began her break with me, James, ended things abruptly. Clara said he told Sarah he wasn't ready for anything serious and found her emotional state and expectations overwhelming. After that, Sarah found herself in a difficult spot. She had given up her stable relationship with me. The house we lived in was sold. She'd been staying with Clara, but that arrangement became strained because of Sarah's emotional state. According to Clara, Sarah's refusal to take responsibility for her choices, often blaming me for overreacting or James for deceiving her again, made things worse. Sarah's parents also got involved. Clara told me they were deeply disappointed in Sarah's actions. They had liked me and were excited about the wedding. They already knew James was unsuitable from Sarah's previous relationship with him. When they found out the full story, that Sarah asked for a break to be with James, that I ended the engagement and sold the house, they took my side. They felt Sarah threw away a good future through recklessness and poor judgment. They told Sarah this directly. The next update I got was that Sarah lost her job. Details are vague, but it seems the emotional chaos in her personal life affected her work performance and attendance, so she became jobless. With James dumping her, a strained relationship with her sister, disapproving parents, and now unemployed, Sarah was effectively homeless or relying on short-term charity from friends after Clara asked her to find other housing. Clara's initial contact with me was to apologize for Sarah's behavior and to express her and her parents' regret about how things turned out. She also wanted to make sure I knew they did not approve of Sarah's choices. It was a surprising conversation, and I mostly just listened. Recently, the begging has started. Sarah has tried reaching me through new channels, creating fresh social media profiles to send messages or calling from unknown numbers. The messages that get through before I block them are apologies, pleas for a second chance, and requests for help, sometimes financial, sometimes just wanting to talk. She's mentioned her hard situation, her regret, and her claimed realization of the mistake she made. I'm not asking whether I should take her back or help her. That door is closed, welded shut, and the entire building has been demolished. My actions were firm, and I stand by them. I suppose I'm writing all this down on Reddit to lay out the sequence of events and mostly to vent. I'm not seeking advice on how to deal with her. I have a strict no-contact policy. About 3 weeks have passed since I posted this originally. I've read many comments and private messages. I appreciate the different perspectives and the time people took to read my long story. Many shared similar experiences or offered support for my position. Some frequent questions and points for clarification have come up, which I'll address here. 1. Many asked about the house. As I said, the house was 100% mine. I bought it years before the engagement using my own money and an inheritance. Sarah's name was on no ownership documents. She contributed to some utilities and groceries, like any partner or roommate. But this did not grant her any equity or tenancy rights beyond being a resident in my home. When our engagement and relationship ended because she chose to pursue another man, her right to live there was nullified. About her belongings, I boxed them and gave her a fair chance to collect them, which she did with her sister present. There was no illegal eviction. She was asked to leave after she effectively ended our cohabitation. The locks were changed to secure my property during the sale and after our relationship definitively ended. 2. Some questioned how quickly I acted. The conversation where Sarah asked for a break was not a brief, impulsive moment. It was the result of weeks of her growing distance, renewed contact with James, and her expressed doubts about our relationship. Her request wasn't for quiet time to think alone. It was specifically to explore a relationship with James. She clearly stated her intention to date and be intimate with him. There was no confusion for me. It was a straightforward declaration of her priorities. My response was just as clear. I was not willing to be an option, a fallback plan, or worse, a doormat, as some call it. Third, Clara, Sarah's sister, was the first in the family to fully understand what had happened. Sarah went to stay with Clara immediately after our definitive conversation. Naturally, Clara asked her what happened. From what Clara later told me, Sarah initially tried to paint the situation as me overreacting to a simple request for space. But under Clara's questioning, knowing her sister well, the full extent of Sarah's request, wanting to date James, came out. Clara is very practical. She knew James's history and had warned Sarah against reconnecting with him. Sarah's parents were informed by Clara and later by Sarah herself. Their support for me was based on several reasons. According to Clara, they had always liked me and saw me as a stable, reliable partner for Sarah. They knew about James's past betrayals and viewed him as a destructive influence. To them, Sarah's choice to risk a secure future and impending marriage to revisit a failed relationship with an untrustworthy man was an act of profound poor judgment. They didn't see my actions, ending the relationship and selling the house, as the problem, but rather as a direct result of Sarah's decision. Their disappointment was with her choices, not my response. Fourth, some people found how fast I acted surprising. I'm a planner by nature. Once I decide, I execute efficiently. The job search was an acceleration of existing thoughts about my career progression, and the situation with Sarah gave it immediate urgency. The housing market was, as mentioned, very active. I priced the house to sell quickly, preferring speed and certainty over squeezing every last dollar. My goal was a clean, rapid break from my old life. My actions weren't panic-driven. In the weeks since my first post, Sarah's attempts to contact me continued for a while, but then slowed after one particularly direct message. A mutual acquaintance, a former colleague I trust, who Sarah also tried to reach, relayed to her that I had authorized this person to tell Sarah clearly there was no chance of reconciliation or discussion, and that any further contact attempts would be seen as harassment. I also said I wished her no ill will, but that her life and problems were hers to resolve, and I would not be involved. This was the only communication I have initiated, though indirectly, since blocking her, I've kept no direct contact. I also took extra steps to protect my privacy, changing my main phone number, a hassle but necessary, and updating security settings on various personal accounts. It was a process to make sure all ties were fully cut. Through Clara, who gave me one last unsolicited update about a week ago, I learned more. James, after dumping Sarah, apparently told their mutual acquaintances that Sarah was too intense and stuck in the past. Clara said this further embarrassed Sarah's job situation didn't get better. She struggled to find new work, partly because of the circumstances of her previous job loss, rumored to involve unprofessional behavior linked to her personal issues, and possibly because she lacked focus during job searches and interviews. The biggest news Clara shared was that Sarah briefly tried to live with her parents, but that didn't last either. According to Clara, Sarah's parents provided temporary shelter but were firm that Sarah needed to accept responsibility, seek professional help for her decision-making, and take real steps to rebuild independently instead of looking for quick fixes or blaming others. Sarah apparently reacted badly to this, causing more tension, and left after a few weeks. Clara didn't know Sarah's exact location when we last spoke, only that she was staying temporarily with an old college friend and still struggling a lot. Clara expressed her own distress and frustration, feeling caught in the middle, but affirmed that she and her parents believed Sarah needed to face the consequences of her actions and learn from them. She emphasized they held no ill will toward me and wished me well. I thanked Clara for the update, but didn't ask for more, hoping to draw a line under these reports. My life is here now, and I'm fully focused on moving forward. It has been about 6 months since my first update, making it roughly 7 months since my original post. A significant amount of time has passed, allowing more developments, or lack thereof, in Sarah's situation, while my own life has continued to stabilize and progress in the new state. My situation remains positive and steady. Work is going well. I've taken on more responsibility and I'm involved in some interesting projects. I've established a good routine, made a few new friends, and explored more of the surrounding area. The new city feels like home now. The events of last year, though significant, feel increasingly distant. I don't dwell on Sarah or the past relationship. My focus is firmly forward. I am not in any new romantic relationship by choice, as I'm content with this phase of life, concentrating on professional growth and personal interests. Regarding Sarah, thankfully, the flow of information has greatly diminished. Clara has respected my unspoken request to stop updates, and I've had no direct contact from Sarah or her family for several months. However, about 2 months ago, I received one significant piece of information indirectly. It came through a former colleague from my old city, the same person who had previously relayed my no-contact message to Sarah. He reached out with a professional question. I gave him my new number, asking him not to share it. During the conversation, he hesitantly mentioned something he thought I might want to know, adding that he understood if I wasn't interested. He told me that Sarah had, at some point in the previous months, left the state. Apparently, after exhausting options with friends and family who maintained their stance, she decided to relocate, possibly to live with a distant relative in another part of the country, or to try a completely fresh start where no one knew her or her recent past. He didn't have exact details, only that she was no longer in our old city or nearby. This news of her moving didn't provoke a strong reaction from me. It seemed like a logical, if desperate, step for someone in her position. There have been no further attempts from Sarah to contact me since before my first update. At least, none that got through. Changing my number and carefully blocking suspicious, new accounts or unknown numbers has been effective. My life continues on the path I've set. The house sale, the move, the new job. All these were decisions to make a clean break and build a new foundation, and those goals have been achieved. This will likely be my final update on the matter, as there's little more to say from my perspective, and the information about Sarah has basically dried up, which I prefer. The purpose of my original post was to document the sequence of events and actions, and that has been done.